Now this drives just like the Steve McQueen car. Really full. Welcome to an episode of Jay Leno's Garage. Something very, very special today. First, an explanation. You might remember about 7-8 years ago, I was fortunate to drive the actual Steve McQueen XKSS from 1957. If you don't know the story was Jaguar had a bunch of D-type Jags left over. Some of the rules changed. They couldn't race them anymore. They wanted to turn them into road cars. So they had 25 cars, and they turned it into the XKSS. There was a fire at Browns Lane where they were built. I think only 9 actually survived, and the rest were destroyed, and it became legend. Steve McQueen bought one, had the car modified to his standards. Tony Nancy did the interior, a few other things, not terribly different, but a few things, wheels and whatnot. It is probably the most valuable Jaguar in the world, worth probably about $30 million, something like that. It might even be more if somebody wanted to pay that for it. One of the most fascinating cars to drive. I love that car. The difference between the XKSS and a regular street Jaguar, night and day, all kinds of power, dry sump lubrication, I mean all kinds of trick things. Okay, that's the only one. My friend Dan Mooney has built this as a tribute to the Steve McQueen car, but we don't really do replica cars on this show very often. Once in a while, maybe. But when something this exceptional comes along, this was built as a one-off. It is as close to original as you could get. The body is all aluminum as per the original. It's not fiberglass. There's no, Chevrolet or Ford parts. It's all pretty much Jaguar. Dan will explain it to us. But if you look at it, it couldn't be more visually correct. I mean, with the exception of the steering wheel on the left-hand side, of course it's on the right on the original car, so it can be driven here. He built this, as I said, as a one-off. Well, let's bring Dan in. Dan, come on in. It's Dan Mooney from Classic Jaguar out of Austin, Texas. He's a guy, he turned his hobby into a job, and while you're at your job, you built your hobby. So, yeah, very cool. So tell us about how long did this take, first of all?
Well, the car took about 2 years to build from start to finish, and it really took about 50 years in the planning, because I started looking at the Steve McQueen car and pictures of Steve McQueen with his car literally back in the 60s, and I became obsessed with that car and always loved Steve McQueen. And then
But Steve McQueen didn't own it in the 60s.
Well, he did actually. He got the car in '58, and he kept it till about '69.
No, Richard Freshman bought it after him. That's right. I saw Richard with this car would show up at the Rock Store, which is sort of the hangout, the cars and coffee kind of place before that term was popular, where all the bikers would go, and I would see it there every week. And I remember that at the time they were asking like $500,000. Well, that's ridiculous for a car, $500,000. But that's right. He got it after Steve. And then it went to the museum.
Yeah, Richard bought the car from the estate in, I think, 1984, and I think he paid $148,000 for it.
That really would be not $1 million, but pretty close.
It was a lot of money back in '84.
You forget how much, I mean, you could buy 911s for $3,500,
right.
Secondhand. So that was a lot of money.
Well, and he sent the car to England to get restored, because it hadn't been driven for 4 or 5 years, because of course Steve McQueen passed away in 1980.
Right.
And I actually, about 25 years ago, I was able to buy an original piston and one of the knockoffs from the original McQueen car that got kind of recycled during that restoration.
See, I always wonder about that. I remember my wife is a huge Dickens fan, and I bought Charles Dickens' Inkwell.
Right.
And I paid like a crazy amount of money as a gift. And how do I know it's an Inkwell? How do I know it's Charles Dickens?
I know.
So you have to sort of go with that, yeah.
Well, the piston is in a box that's labeled by the company that I know did the restoration in 1985. So I'm fairly confident, but it might be another Charles Dickens Inkwell situation.
But I think it is his Inkwell, you know.
It's nice to think it. Think positively, but I've had that on my desk or near my desk for 25 years, and I've always known that at some point I was going to build something like this, and here it is.
Now, the only difference is the original car had a a dry sump lubrication.
Correct.
And the engine was tilted off to the side. This is tilted off to the side as well?
It is. It's tilted over about 8 degrees, really for bonnet clearance.
Right.
That's the only reason it's tilted.
And the original motor put out about what, 250 horse?
About 250 and about 250 foot-pounds.
Right. And this probably puts out more than that with modern.
It puts out 350 horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque.
Wow, okay. And the only other difference is you move the steering wheel to the left.
Yes.
And you put 5-speed?
It's got a modern 5-speed in it. It's an RS Cosworth-based 5-speed. So it's a strong gearbox, nice shifting gearbox. I'm not really sure this car needs a 5-speed, to be honest, because it's not a high-speed cruising car.
Right.
It's a very fast car from, from 0 to however brave you're feeling, but you're not going to sit on a freeway doing 100 miles an hour in it, I doubt, anyway.
But 100 miles an hour doesn't seem, I mean, it's more than capable.
It's probably, if the original was capable of doing 160, 170, something like that, it has to be quicker than that.
I mean, I had the Steve McQueen car at 100, and I felt like, boy, there's a lot more here. I mean...
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It was the most modern vintage car I had ever driven up to that point. I mean, it felt like you could sell this today.
Yes.
It would be just as exciting. It could more than keep up with modern traffic and modern cars just because of the lightweight. I mean, whereas McLaren and all these other cars are considered lightweight at 3,200 pounds, 3,100 pounds, this is almost less than 2,000, what, 21 maybe?
It is about 2,100 pounds,
Yeah.
and if you took the spare wheel out, and actually 2,100 pounds with fluids.
Right.
So it's probably a sub 2,000 pound car.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
It's light.
Yeah, I mean, you would have 0 to 60 in about, what, 4 seconds?
I think a little less than that, probably.
Yeah, well, now with this one, but I mean, the standard.
Oh, the original one would have been about 5.
Yeah, yeah. The thing that Steve made it different was obviously the Tony Nancy interior.
Right.
For those who don't know, Tony Nancy was one of those West Coast hot rodders. There was a time during the 50s and 60s where those guys were so celebrated. Ed Roth did all the models for Revell and AMT and all that kind of stuff. And Tony Nancy did the interiors. Junior House of Color did the wild metal flakes and all that kind of paint that was very popular back in the day. And those guys made the transition from hot rods to modern cars. My Gullwing over there that I have, that has a Tony Nancy interior. That's why I never changed it. It's been a racing car its whole life, so it's just black leather interior, but the fact that he did it, that made it sort of...
I like all of the extra pleats he put in, though, and
right.
You know, it's definitely custom. It's different from any other XKSS or D-type interior.
And it's really a tiny car. I mean, this car is really small.
People don't realize how small it is until they actually try to get in it.
Even minis now are maxis by any chance.
Huge.
When you look at a real mini, people go, oh my God, it looks like a toy. You gotta have one in each shoe, you know. But now the mini has 4 doors, and it's like Americans. They started out small, now they're big fat things, you know. Whereas this is just, you know, I have a thing for cars where all 4 wheels are the same size. I don't know why. The Miura is like that. I have an early Miura. Bugatti. I just like the era where you could drive a car to the racetrack, win the race, and then drive the car home with the trophy in the seat next to you.
This would definitely be one of those, a candidate for that.
This would be, because these did start out as D-types. And what changed? Why couldn't they race anymore or something?
I think it was an engine regulation where, you know, the 3 liters became the maximum engine size.
Right.
And the D-types were obviously 3.5 liters.
Right.
So they were dead in the water really in 1957. So they had these 25 or so left over. And Sir William Lyons decided to make the XKSS primarily for the US market, actually.
Right, right.
And
well, sure, he had seen what Max Hoffman did with the Gullwing.
Right.
And the BMW 507 and all those others, because that was really the golden age back in the day. People think it's the 60s with the muscle cars, but the 50s, you had all these high-performance cars, Ferrari, Maserati, all coming to races. Absolutely. Racing against Max Bolchowski with his hot rod, with a 401 Buick. I mean, it was really a great time. And it's such a strikingly beautiful car. Was this designed by?
It was designed in-house.
In-house at Jaguar.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's just a voluptuous shape. It really looks contemporary. I don't think there's a better looking car. This and certainly the XKE. that came along as well.
And you can see similarities between this and the XKE that followed just 4 years later.
Yeah, really something. But can we, let's open the hood and show them what we have under here.
Sure. So under the hood, I have not, or bonnet I would say, I have not tried to replicate exactly the McQueen car.
Right.
Just for practical reasons, really. I've tried, as I said, it's got a wet sump, so for ease of maintenance as much as anything else.
And what brakes are you using?
I've got vented Willwoods on the front.
Okay.
And I've got slightly larger brakes on the back. One big difference between this car and the original cars is this has E-type independent rear suspension.
Right.
We had to really reduce the spring pressure because the car's so light compared to an E-type. But it's ostensibly the same suspension throughout as an E-type. And really the car is running on E-type mechanical drivetrain.
Yeah, I should probably clear up when I say it's an exact copy. Visually, it's exact copy because obviously you've changed suspension and done things to make it a bit more reliable.
I wanted it to be one of those, you know, you see the car in a double take and
right.
Wow, I know what that is. But really it's an E-type under the skin, and it features all of our performance and reliability upgrades that we've developed over the years.
Now you are not manufacturing these. This is just a car you built.
This is a one of one. I'm only building one tribute to the Steve McQueen car, and this is it.
Yeah.
It was very much a labor of love and kind of a bucket list item for me, to be honest.
Right, right. No, really, really just beautiful.
Thank you.
Just amazing. And it's most impractical. It's hot, it's noisy. These windows, you have to literally unbolt them, don't you?
You have to unscrew them to take them off, and
right.
McQueen never used these. McQueen took these off his car.
Right.
And if you see all of those iconic photographs of him, you know, on a film set with a horse tied to the car and stuff, these aren't on.
Right, right.
And he didn't have the luggage rack either. In fact, he didn't have this either.
Yeah. I'm surprised you put the luggage rack on.
I put it on because the car in the museum at the Peterson has got the luggage rack and it's got the side windows.
Right, right, right.
And they were so helpful in getting some of the details right. I wanted to try and make it look as, you know, close to the way the car looks today in the museum as I could.
Now, was this an aftermarket item, or did you have to hand make this?
This is all hand fabricated.
Oh, it does. Okay, so
yeah.
It's not a standard like XKE.
Oh no, no.
Fitting, and you could put it on there. Okay.
No, this is a lot of what you see here is all fabricated. The body is obviously a monocoque, an aluminum monocoque. It's held together with almost 2,000 rivets.
Right.
And some of the rivets you can still see because we haven't hidden them. They're exposed.
Right.
But there's another 1,500 or more rivets under the skin holding this car together that have just been ground flat.
Now in England, the passengers' feet would get roasted, but in this one, it's
the drivers, yes.
The drivers, yeah. Okay.
We actually put some heat insulation under the car because when I first started driving this car, it was August in Austin.
Yeah.
And it was unbearable. It was so hot.
Yeah.
But actually, it works quite well now. The heat reflective stuff that we've got underneath the car.
And you've got the gas tank mid-engine, so to speak.
Yes. So this sits behind the seats, the gas tank.
How many gallon tank is that?
Well, this is a small tank. I've got 12-gallon tank here. The original would have had a 36-gallon fuel cell.
It was 36.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was because it was a leftover from the D-type racing days.
So if you've got 12 gallons, you can probably go 100 miles.
Well, about that, yes. I'll bet it's getting about 10 miles to the gallon the way I've got it tuned.
Yeah, that's funny. 36 gallon, boy, that's a big
I know, it's huge.
Yeah, that's it. And they didn't have fuel cells back in the day, right?
Well, actually, they did. They were rudimentary, but they did have fuel cells.
Yeah.
It actually had twin fuel cells back in the day.
And the wheels are polished. That's Steve as well.
That's a Steve McQueen touch. He didn't like the stove enameled or powder coated finish of the originals.
Right. Now the holes drilled in the wheels, was that factory?
Yes, so all of that was factory. It was just the polishing that he did.
Right.
And these tires, actually, one of your guys was talking about these tires earlier on. Michelin Pilotes are a fantastic tire for anybody who's got a 16-inch narrow wheel on their car, XK, 140, 150, that type of thing. This is a wonderful tire because it looks like it's been made to look like a
I know, and it's a 16.
ply.
I wish I had known about this tire because when I did my my Cunningham, we just went to a 15-inch wheel because tires were available, and they touched the fenders on turns. I can feel them.
Right, right.
Yeah, I wish I had those 16.
Well, these Pilotes are great.
Yeah, very nice. What else? Let's come around the back. And it has, well, it doesn't really have a trunk at all, does it? No.
No, it's got a spare wheel in here. There's a spare wheel and some tools, and that's about it, really.
Yeah, you can't really. So if you're going on a trip, you bring the Harley, you know. But it's nice that you actually have a spare. I don't get this thing of no spare tire anymore. In the old days, you get a flat, you jack it up, you fix it, you're on the road maybe 20 minutes and you go. Now, you're there all day waiting for a flatbed, and tires are so unique to vehicles now. Oh, you know, try and find a tire for a Tesla. You're gonna wait 2 or 3 days, you know.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's very nicely done, yeah. Cool. And are these the standard?
They're actually modified XK150 lights.
Okay.
They look very similar to the original D-type lights.
But is that what they did back in the day?
Yeah. So they look very, very similar to the original D-type lights.
And standard Jaguar dashboard.
Yeah, and actually the dashboard is interesting because we put a huge amount of effort into trying to make it look as much like the McQueen car as we could.
Right.
Because it was slightly customized by McQueen, by Tony Nancy, and we've got the Von Dutch glove box door.
Right.
And inside here, just for a bit of fun, we've got Steve McQueen cigarettes in there.
The Viceroy cigarettes.
1960 Viceroys. And we've got his fold-up Purcell sunglasses that Steve was famous for wearing.
Was it lung cancer that
Yes,
killed him?
unfortunately, yes.
Well, he was, you know, Steve was on an asbestos ship during the, I think, Korean War. And he didn't get it from the smoking, but I'm sure that exacerbated the situation.
Wow.
But yeah, he was an interesting guy. You know, he would hang out at Bud's shop. Bud Eakins had a Triumph motorcycle shop, and Steve would come around. And you know, near the end, he was like a hoarder guy. He dressed like me and didn't shave, and just it was all his cars and motorcycles. He had to up at Santa Paula Airport. He had I guess a shop up there, just filled with all kinds of Indian motorcycles. I mean, he really became just a hardcore, crazy old, but you know, like these crazy cat ladies.
Right.
He was like a crazy car and motorcycle guy. You know.
You know, funny enough, I just ordered a watch that you can now buy.
Yeah.
That's been made from pieces from the Triumph that he did the Great Escape jump.
Well, how many watches can they make from that?
Oh gosh, I don't know, but it's from clutch discs and connecting rods, and you know,
Well,
I
that's
literally
very
just
funny.
ordered that.
It's very funny when you watch this Great Escape. He's in a German prison camp. Why the Germans would be driving a Triumph?
Triumph, I know.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But that was Bud that did the jump. You
I know, yeah.
Bud also did. Bud Eakins, a great stuntman. When you see Bullet, remember the guy in the motorcycle? And they come to the gas station. The guy throws the bike down and slides along the. That's Bud. Yeah. He just put on a jacket. I go out and do that side. Go fall off the motor. Okay, slides off and gets up. You know. Yeah.
This is actually an original D-type Speedo in there
Oh, okay.
that we managed to find, and we restored that.
Went to 180, huh? Or
Well, originally those D-types would have done.
So, and the engine, you've gone through it. Is it 4.2 liters or 3.8?
Well, it started life as a 4.2 E-type, and we've stroked it out to 4.7.
Oh, wow.
So it's got a lot of torque.
Is
Obviously.
that about the limit of that motor, 4.7?
No, we've actually gone a little bit bigger, but you know, we've done 5-liter,
Okay.
6-cylinder Jaguar engines.
Now, I maybe it's a rumor. I was always told the 3.8, or was it the 3.4, was the nicest revving one.
I think the 3.4 and the 3.8 are both really smooth revving engines.
Right.
The 4.2 it's still smooth. Everything's relative, but
Right.
certainly the 3.4 and the 3.8 they rev quicker. Yes.
Well, it's just a beautiful, beautiful job. I could see.
Thank you.
I'm surprised you could even do it in 2 years. I mean, pretty amazing. Can we bring it next door and put it up and show people what it looks like?
For sure, yeah,
Let's bring
absolutely.
it up and put it on the lift. Well, we thought it would fit on the Sterile Coney lift. It didn't because I didn't want to risk it. Couldn't quite get under there because of the header. Same thing here. So, well, you have photos, right? Let's take a.
Sure.
Here's some photos of the build and also what it looks like underneath. Come on, let's take it for a ride.
All right, let's do it.
Not a lot of room in this car. All right, now you feel like you're driving.
Line up the red dots.
clutch is a good workout, huh?
It's pretty strong.
Oh, yeah. Wow, very smooth. Now, you got to drive the actual McQueen car, correct?
I did. A couple of years ago, they invited me to drive it, and it was just the thrill of a lifetime for me. It really was. Drove it off up into the canyons.
Now, how did you get that chance to drive it?
Well, funny enough, I won an auction on Bring a Trailer for a ride along, and then when I got to the museum, it turned out that Dana Williams and I knew each other. We'd actually met at your garage.
Right.
And Dana said, hey, you know as much about this car as I do. Why don't you drive it?
Right.
And yeah, I don't think he'd finished the sentence before I was sitting in the driver's seat, before he changed his mind.
Car, just a little bit cool.
Exactly.
So the heat actually works at an advantage. I mean, this truly is one of the great engines. You know, I never really noticed the difference between the Maserati 6 and the Aston Martin 6, and this is always the poor relation to those. And yet I think they get more power out of them.
Superb, and they made it last all the way from 48 to 87 or 88 or whatever it was.
Well, they call this a small block Chevy of Europe because it was used in so many applications. Wow, this drives just like the Steve McQueen car.
I think what people don't realize about the car is, first of all, how small it is.
Right.
And also they're really nimble, very light steering, you know, very agile.
I think it's fair to say this is about the same size as a Miata.
Probably is.
Yeah, pretty close.
In fact, honestly, if you parked it next to a Miata, I think the Miata would probably be quite a bit bigger.
Yeah. It's funny when you see pictures of these cars in period, or even in the magazines, they're always isolated, so you get no sense of
the size, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really petite.
It is. I just absolutely love it.
It's really not much. Is it about the same size as the 356 Porsche?
Yeah, it might be. The wheelbase on this is, I think it's like 90.5 inches versus about 96 on an E-Type,
right,
which is already quite a small car.
But instant throttle response, and it's not even warmed up yet.
No, exactly. And we could get quite a bit more power out of it, actually, but because of the engine tilted over,
right,
I've had to do the headers kind of custom, and the front two
right, primaries
are not equal length to the other four. Yeah. But honestly, I mean, it doesn't need any more power. It's already perhaps too powerful for the wheels and tires, really.
But boy, this windshield is right here, isn't it? Well, bonk.
That's your airbag.
No, you're the airbag.
It's funny, I haven't driven in this car as a passenger.
Oh, is that right? Now this is my turn signal here?
Yes, and if you want to go left, you lean it left, exactly. It'll stay on for 12 seconds.
Oh,
if you need it to come on again, you know.
Right, okay.
I think it's funny that there's no backlit for the gauges. You know, you just got this one sort of flashlight up here that points down at the speedo. But it's got all of my reliability upgrades in it as well, so runs cool. You know, I wouldn't hesitate to drive the car quite a long distance, except for the chiropractor visit afterwards.
Right. What I love is how free breathing it is.
Yeah, it really is. Especially as I've stroked it to 4.7, that's barely slowed down its, free revving nature at all.
Oh no, it doesn't shut off after 12 seconds.
And if you want it to shut off, just move it again. And it will shut off after 12 flashes. I had to put much softer springs in the back than an E-Type. Normally an E-Type would have 275-pound springs, 4 of them. This has got 130 pound springs.
Now, were the guys at the Peterson helpful? They let you take measurements and everything?
They were fantastic. In fact, I really want to give Bruce Batcher, the mechanic over at the Peterson, and Dana Williamson, but especially Bruce, a shout out because he would measure things for me. I asked him loads of questions, and he was literally putting a pair of calipers on the holes on the steering wheel, so we knew how far to space out the holes and how big to make the holes. They couldn't have been more helpful throughout the project.
You know, it's so funny, it almost feels like power steering. It's so light.
Very light, yeah, and very direct. And not too many rattles.
No, no rattles at all, actually. Quite nice.
In fairness, the suspension on this, you know, is so advanced, you know, compared to the suspension that's on the original car. Obviously, it was a live axle at the back on the original car.
I forgot how far that pedal goes down. Really pulls. Well, this is what a sports car should be. Most modern cars are boring up to 80 miles an hour. You know, they're so isolated and so smooth. Whereas this gives you the raw, visceral feel of a proper car. Oh, nowhere near red line. I mean, crazy. All kinds of torque.
And the red line on this is about 5,800, something like that.
I was expecting it to be quite a bit more raucous and noisy. It's really not. It's quite civilized.
Well, we've put a lot of effort into trying to eliminate all the rattles and squeaks, and I wanted it to feel like a factory-built car.
You mean you didn't want it to feel like a factory-built car?
I think Steve McQueen would have appreciated the extra 150 foot-pounds of torque.
Right.
He would have got into a lot more trouble, I think, than he did.
Well, Danny did an incredible job. Just a work of art. It really is.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautifully done. You know, I always say if you're restoring a car right or building it right, you're going to lose money on it because nobody can afford to put the amount of time and effort that someone who really appreciates these things does. And that's what you've done here, so.
Well, thanks very much, Jay. I appreciate it.
Beautiful job. And thanks for the opportunity. Having driven them both, I think I'd prefer this over the Steve McQueen.
A bit quicker.
A bit quicker, yeah.
Mm-hmm.